Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
Friday, end of Gameweek 33. So we've had all 6 of the midweek fixtures, James. I was just checking myself on how many games there have been. And on we move into Gameweek 34.
I don't know if we move. We struggle to go, how are we getting our Chelsea players in? Those on Wildcard are obviously not having those issues at the moment. The rest of us are probably having to make sacrifices to do it. How was your game week first, sir?
61 points. Started slowly because after the weekend's fixtures only had 13 points, which was a small red arrow down to like 155,000. Then stormed ahead with Liverpool with Salah, Robertson and Trent, and was on a green arrow, went up to like 140k or something. So these are all very small minor arrows. And then on the Wednesday and Thursday had very little by way of returns, just a Mason Mount assist and another blank from Captain Chris Wood. And so fell away towards the end of the week.
Do you know why you fell away?
Ended on 61 points, 165,000. So it's not disastrous considering how it started. If you'd given me that at the end, I would have taken it. But yeah, I mean, Saka, I don't own Saka.
No, you fell away because do you remember what you said to me on Wednesday morning?
Can't remember.
So I walked into the office Wednesday morning.
And something about Salah. Do you miss Salah?
The first thing Suj said to me was, Mo Salah says good morning. And I thought at that point, yeah, fuck you. You ain't getting nothing else this week. And sure enough, I had a pretty decent Wednesday and you didn't, mate.
Yes. But so, I mean, the minor stuff here. This is like, if it's a game of inches, these are like millimeters at the moment. It was always going to be a difficult one because we didn't steam in. I didn't have like a massive amount of doublers, and I didn't have a lot of Man United or anybody that you consider might have a decent double. Martinelli, who was one of my doublers, ended up being benched midweek, and I took a gamble on Chris Wood as captain. Newcastle win 2 games, score 3 goals, but he's not involved in any of them. So, you know, they were really dominant in the first half against Palace as well. So I feel fine about it. The only frustration from the week is obviously Rudiger getting injured. I don't have a lot of information about it, so I'm hoping you will enlighten me. One of my strategy to obviously get to game week 36 without using the wild card was 5 transfers, of which I had 4 free. Rudiger being injured now, if he's not going to be back for game week 36, kind of then makes it 6 transfers. Then it's a -8, and then I'm bordering on at this point now. I may as well pull the trigger on the wild card.
Would I just jump in with the Antonio Rudiger situation? So he felt his groin publicly. He went down towards the end of the semi-final against Crystal Palace and was sitting on the floor and having a stretch out. He finished the game, but at the time I was like, oh, not another FPL injury. I could do without that. Then obviously it kind of broke a couple of hours before kickoff that he probably wasn't going to play Wednesday night. Tuchel was in a right foul mood, as you can imagine, after the way they played Wednesday night. And when he was asked after the game, he said he didn't think he'd play against West Ham. Right. So there will probably be more information today, but I would suggest he's probably not going to play against West Ham. He has every chance of playing against Manchester United.
Okay.
Does that help?
So, yeah, it means I'll leave him. It means I'll leave him, to be honest with you.
You're running the risk here of, presumably you would bench boost 36, right?
I am bench boosting 36.
You know what risk you're running here, don't you? Is that you just blindly go so far towards it that you forget about the rest of your team?
No, not really. And we talked about this on the Chip pod the other day, because the moves I'm making are fringe moves now. Like, it's the bench that I'm going to be adjusting. Chris Wood, Breuer, Ben Johnson are the ones that are going to be moving on, and that's going to be the bulk of my bench that week. So with Rudiger, this week my original plan was to sell Kulusevski for Dewsbury Hall and to upgrade Ben Johnson to Reece James for the double game week. Did we get a confirmation, by the way? I should really be up to date with the world on the City Wolves game.
Nope. So
unhelpful.
yeah, it's actually now a little bit scary for those on Wildcard now, particularly those who are obviously aiming towards the 36 bench boost, because you really want the information. I think there probably will be an announcement today. I think it probably will be game week 36, but I don't rate my confidence on that any higher than kind of 70% tops. And knowing would be obviously for me not on the wild card. I hope they announce it at like 2:00 tomorrow. I think that would be quite funny either way. I think people will still gamble towards their City assets, but with City is particularly scary because if it's just a single of Newcastle at home, then you're liable to the rotation and the 1 or 0 pointers as part of a bench boost for those aiming that way. I think the announcement will come today, but officially we haven't got it.
So you finished on 68 points. Middling.
Yeah, I mean, if we're working, if we're working in
grey arrow,
if we're working in inches, I've got 7 more inches than you, mate. No, small red arrow.
No. We're working in inches. This week was millimeters.
I'll take 7 millimeters more than you, mate, to be honest. Small red arrow. I'm almost exactly at 100,000 now. I'm 100,036, which when Mo popped off on Tuesday night, I'm watching it. And I wasn't watching the game thinking, oh my God, I haven't got Mo Salah. I was watching the game thinking, this is great. I'm enjoying this too much. There's not a slight on United. I'm just enjoying the football. And I'm thinking, this is the same. It's happened again. The same as what happened at Old Trafford. And again, ironically, I'm probably going to captain Havertz this week. That week then was the Havertz 7-0 against Norwich and the blank. And I'm like, do you know what? I really haven't gone against Mo that much this year. And when I have, it's obviously burnt really badly. So I was really surprised when I logged in on Ragaboli's site Live FPL after the game and saw that I hadn't dropped nowhere near as badly as I thought. I thought it was going to be like a catastrophic drop. And I guess partly the fact that there was a double game week for other teams and some silly people went and captained people like Chris Wood meant that the obviously the captaincy for Mo Salah was nowhere near as big as it would normally be.
I think he wasn't on more than 100% EO.
No, Saka was the EO highest for the week.
Yeah. If you're having a pop at the Chris Wood captaincy, remind me what your captain scored.
Bruno
less than Chris Wood.
Less
than Chris Wood.
Bruno got 20 points.
Wrong one, mate.
Yeah,
less than Chris Wood.
I won't be captain Bruno Fernandes this week. That's a certainty, mate. In fact, I've considered selling the guy. So returnees for me, the big differential for me was the double Newcastle defence, which when I reflect on how I'd been kind of set on going De Gea over Dubravka all week and then suddenly decided on Thursday, Friday that actually, no, I really wanted to swing with the double Newcastle. It was really nice to see that come in Wednesday night against Palace for Dubravka and Cher. I had 6 pointers from Cancelo, Robertson and Trent, same as what you've got. The 10 from Saka, a 10 from Weghorst. So considering Salah's gone off and I've had a small red, like I'll take that. And exactly what I said about, it's interesting that all the talk Tuesday nights quite a lot of sell him at your peril. He's essential. You can't go without him. And of course, this is obviously going to happen. And it feels like, I think for those who've gone without Mo Salah, being on Twitter Tuesday night would have felt like you're the only person in the world who's gone without Mo Salah. And I think there's quite a few who have gone and swung the other way. And I think we all kind of stand together, those who've gone without, by saying none of us didn't think that Mo Salah would have a game week like this where he'd pop off. Actually, this was one of the better ones for him to do it. This Sunday is obviously them playing Everton is a little bit nervous again. And I'm sure that for those on Wildcard now, Tuesday night will have probably influenced that many who have thought, oh, I'm going away, will go back. I'm not going to. I'm going to stick to my guns. Might be stubborn, whatever. I just think for when I wildcard next week, well, actually, I'll be wildcarding after deadline tomorrow. The balance I can get for the rest of the season is going to be better without him.
So you're likely to be without Mo Salah for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And when we spoke earlier in the week, you were also saying that you might be without Harry Kane for the rest of the season.
It's possibly going to be true as well, yeah.
So anybody that's interested in that, well, obviously make sure you're subscribed or whatever it may be to the podcast.
Subscribe. I might even go without Sonny as well. I mean, subscribe. It's more like suicide.
No, I'm saying they're going to be interested in seeing what this wildcard is all about next week. So wherever you listen to the pod, if you keep that bell notified, you'll get notified as soon as we produce content around it. Transfers this week?
Oh, it's awkward. And partly because of that Rudiger injury. It's another one. Sometimes you can tempt fate with this game. Remember, I said to you, I was messaging with Luke Disable a couple of weeks ago. By the way, mate, another great appearance on Black Box, smashing it, mate. And I was saying to him, I could do with an injury here, mate, to like force my hand. I think that was going into game week 31 or 32. And since then, I've had Tierney, Fraser, Doherty, now Rudiger. I can't do anything but deal with the injury problems at the moment, basically. So obviously, if Rudiger's probably, I think, going to be available for Manchester United. Therefore, I don't want to take a -4 to hit him out. If he's ruled out, if Tuchel comes out today and says, he's probably out for 2 weeks, I'll bin him. I'll bin him for James or Alonso, probably Reece James for myself.
Yeah, me too.
But the plans, if he's going to play once potentially, then the plan's just to leave it, because I could get in another Chelsea player for a -4, might also only play once. So I can't be bothered to thump that about.
And also, based on the performance on Wednesday and conceding 4 against Arsenal, they need Rudiger back. So they'll do what they can to get him back on the pitch.
I definitely want Havertz in. One on that is obviously, and I'd highly recommend for anybody thinking about Chelsea, listen to Clash the Correspondence yesterday with Gary Robinson and Ted Moore. We obviously talk about Chelsea assets in a lot of detail. I definitely want to go Havertz this week over Mount. I think what I've seen on the eye over the last number of weeks in terms of his positioning, going back to sort of game week 27 or so, plus the statistical evidence during that period suggests that Havertz, I think, is the better call than Mount. Obviously, look, over one game week, of course, Mason Mount can outscore Havertz. They're close, right? It's not clear and obvious, definitely get Havertz, because Mount is so consistent. Ideally, I'd like to get both, but I don't think it's going to work. The only way I get both is selling Bruno Fernandes. And I'm not, although I think United will get battered tomorrow at Arsenal, and I don't see them doing anything against Chelsea next week, that just does not feel right. Does not feel right. But with Pogba's injury, he might be released a little bit higher as well. I think McTominay's back fit, so that's probably helpful in terms of him getting higher up the pitch. And they'll have to play McTominay tomorrow, because I can't cope in midfield without at least one of McTominay or Fred, despite how much we criticise them. So it doesn't feel right to force him out for -4, and we discussed that on that podcast yesterday as well. So what I'm currently thinking is I'm just short of going the money Fraser to Havertz. So I need to make another transfer to make it. There's literally no way I can get to Havertz in a 1-free transfer unless I sell Kulusevski or Saka. And I'm not overly prepared to do either, to be honest. So I think -4, because it's still going to leave me with a shit team. The -4 I'm looking at now is Weghorst and Nketiah to make that happen. Because as I said, I think Arsenal will destroy them tomorrow. And I think Arsenal fans will have an absolute meltdown if Nketiah's not in that team tomorrow after the way he performed Wednesday night. He's 5.4. I mentioned him about as a possible for free hitters last week. I'll be honest, I was surprised with Lacazette back available that he was still on the team Wednesday night. Arteta's comments afterwards seemed to suggest how there was regret that he hadn't given Nketiah more opportunities. I cannot see any way that it doesn't start tomorrow. And I only need to make this decision based on 1 week, right? And I think Arsenal will go off tomorrow. So I think Nketiah in for Weghorst, frees up the money, Fraser to Havertz, and that's probably going to be it for me. But as I said, if Rudiger's out for 2 weeks or so, I will take a -8.
Yeah, my original plan pre-game week was Kulusevski to Dewsbury Hall and Ben Johnson to Reece James. But the more I look at it, I might even sacrificing Son and sacrificing Kulusevski. If I sacrifice Son this week for Havertz, as you explained, I think the differential between Havertz and Son is not as big as the differential between Kulusevski and Dewsbury Hall. For example, I mean, Kula could easily pop off, whereas Dewsbury Hall's unlikely. Havertz and Son could both pick up attacking returns, especially with a double game week for Havertz. So it might be Sonny gets sacrificed, and going through until game week 37, when I play my free hit, I might only have Kulusevski as Spurs attacking. But the way I see it, it's basically Brentford this week and Leicester are the two games I'm kind of struggling.
Can you clarify for the FPL gods before someone builds a statue of you? Are you still thinking of wildcarding in game week 38?
At the moment, yeah.
I have to say, some people think it's genius.
Yeah.
They are in the minority.
Well, they're the ones that are vocal about their opinion, is what I would say, James. Yeah, I'm still looking at that, but it might end up being a -8 is the way I go with it. So rather than a -4, because there's still quite a few moves that I will need to make it happen. But Sonny to Havertz, it's 3 million difference. Well, it is for me. I mean, actual price difference is a bit more, but based on my buying price, 3 million difference is a lot of money to spread elsewhere.
Yeah, and then you're potentially going out without Sonny for this week. Leicester at home, the double.
Yeah, the double. I mean, Spurs' double is difficult, right? Liverpool and Arsenal, especially.
Of course it is.
Arsenal have got a bit of a.
In terms of, let's just say Tottenham won 3-2 at Liverpool. Extremely unlikely in the way they did at Man City. I'd be fairly certain that day it won't be Harry Kane. It'll be Tottenham's highest point scorer. Be Sonny.
Yeah, I mean, this is the game, right? You can't have them all, unfortunately. So you've got to kind of pick and choose what you want to do. The thing with the move this week of Son to Havertz, if that's what I decide to do, I still have the wild card. Like if I walk into some problems after this weekend, it's not like I can't pull the wild card out before game week 35. I can make that decision before game week 35. So yeah, I feel fairly comfortable at the moment with the options available on the table. An ideal scenario would be Rudiger's declared fit, and then I don't have.
You just considered wildcarding now, and then obviously you can go free Chelsea. Like I've obviously looked.
I've got two already, right?
I've looked
Rudiger
at it
and
myself.
Mount.
Yeah, that's not as necessary, is it?
No. And I've got De Gea. I mean, I don't even want De Gea. Like honestly, James. Ben Foster on my bench last game week outscored David De Gea, and De Gea had a double. For fuck's sake, Ben Foster scored 2 points. De Gea scored 1. Do you know what I mean? And
so
Foster and De Gea had a double, mate.
De Gea's obviously conceded 6 this week, which, on reflection, I don't think there was any that he particularly should have saved from that, or could have even. But he's conceded 10 goals from the last 18 shots on target faced. So there was obviously a pattern. I captained him in 2 previous doubles for United, and I got 8 points off him with no clean sheet, right? And I mean 8 points times 2 for 16 with no clean sheet. But the saves have really stopped with him. I don't see him get. You still have to play him, and it's the same for me. I mean, I don't think that's 100%. Like definitely played a double in terms of I got De Gea against Arsenal and Chelsea, and I got Dubravka against Norwich. No, I am going to play De Gea because I would always, in terms of keepers, there's enough randomness. You know, they could lose 4-0 twice, and he could save a penalty and get decent returns. So I'd always go to doubler from a goalkeeper perspective. But I have even looked at it and gone, should I go Dubravka? So his save returns are just not there at the moment. In terms of investing in new United, forget that.
Take a hit for, well, you're not going to take a hit to get to Schmeichel early when he's got a double. I can understand that, but it's only one more game week. You've got to put up with David De Gea, mate. Just kind of suck it in and deal with it.
Well, yeah, no, he's obviously, he won't be around in my wild card. Obviously for yourself, if you're not going to wild card next week and you're looking to get Schmeichel in, next week doesn't feel right with Schmeichel going to Tottenham and De Gea having Brentford at home. So
no, exactly.
You're leaving that one longer, aren't you?
Yep.
Then if you've got other fires, are you going into, this is the part of the difficulty you're going to find, right? Because if you want to bench boost 36 and suddenly you have a shitload of problems, like you can't get out of it. And I think you need to be cautious of that. Because you don't want to go into that with De Gea single away to Brighton. You know, it's not horrendous, but yeah. Anyway, the only United player I could remotely recommend to anybody is to buy a Langer if it enables for you. Like that's it.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of these games, shall we? And then if we've got some time, we can look at some questions on Twitter. Liverpool 4, Manchester United 0. I mean, it's been done to death. I feel like this game, in the sense of how easy it was for Liverpool, memes galore. The players that you'd expect to return for Liverpool all returned. I think my favourite stat still is the one that we talked about on the Sky Pod, James. Mo Salah completed the least passes for Liverpool, and he still completed more passes than, was it Matic who completed the highest amount of passes for Manchester United?
And I can't remember
Mad.
Matic making the pass. I said to you, although I saw some more
Mad.
highlights yesterday, and I did see in front of my eyes an actual Nemanja Matic pass.
Yeah, dominant.
What happened was, in all honesty, that it must be said, and I feel like, and this always happened. This is why I really want to spit about Brighton a lot on Monday's podcast. It's gone when one of the big clubs loses. The focus always tends to be more on like the catastrophe at United. And obviously, literally as soon as we finished COTC yesterday, they announced Eric Ten Hag, the bastards, didn't they? But we knew that was going to happen, so it's not new news.
Yep.
But all the focus has kind of been on United. Liverpool were sensational. I mean, what you got was Liverpool playing as, I wouldn't say as well as they can play, but, you know, at top peak condition, and United at really, really as low as they can be, basically. So that combination was only going to provide one result, because I think in the build-up, a lot of us would have seen people putting out their combined teams with 11 Liverpool players in it between the two teams. And there's not even an argument about it, by the way.
No,
even Bruno Fernandes does not get in that Liverpool team.
Not even.
Certainly in that system. So it shouldn't really surprise us that Liverpool have dominated Manchester United, but the speed at which they did everything was just overwhelming for United. I mean, the front three, breathtaking. The second goal was one of my favourite goals of the season. It's just such a good goal, which obviously finishes with a brilliant assist from Mane, who is almost reinvented recently as like a false nine and doing it very well. And Salah's first touch and finish, it's godly. Like he makes it look effortless. The ball is spinning mad, and he kills it dead so good that he doesn't have to do anything other than just roll it in the net. Top class. For United, they obviously went with a back five with Phil Jones playing. I think what happened here was he'd obviously decided he needed to go with a back five, and I can understand that, Ranić. But obviously with Varane still out on that, he didn't really have the personnel to do it, and also obviously Luke Shaw unavailable. He'd obviously decided, and we'd spoke about Shaw against Telles being a problem. He'd obviously decided he couldn't play Telles against Shaw. Well, he sacrificed Telles against Salah. He sacrificed Dalot against Salah after 40 minutes. Stuck Wan-Bissaka out there. Was a little bit better, but then the problem was just on the other side. Like, Dalot is absolutely awful defensively. I know there's a lot of United fans prefer him to Wan-Bissaka, not all, but defensively he is absolutely atrocious. So it doesn't surprise me that Liverpool opened them up so easily. Harry Maguire, who I've defended a lot, like even as early as the first goal. The problem on the first goal is, and there's several United players at fault, but Maguire goes out to Mane, and he either has to back off and let him go and turn, or he has to go through him. And go through him doesn't necessarily mean fouling, but once he's committed, you can't half-hearted stop 6-10 yards off, let him turn and then pass the ball. Either get yourself back in position, let him come and run towards you. Don't let that ball in behind. So easy. I mean, it could have been Salah or Trent's assist, right? How easy was it for him? On the fourth goal, he also steps out of position, trying to guess that the ball's going to play in shorter. But where's the big danger? It's Salah in behind, isn't it? It's really, really, really bad. And I genuinely do think they'll get hammered at Arsenal tomorrow. They're in such a bad place. The only thing I can think is, obviously, there should be an uplift in the football club from the fact that Ten Hag's been appointed, but I don't think it doesn't change anything in terms of personnel on the pitch, other than McTominay might be back available, Varane might be back available. That'll be better for them, but I don't think they'll be able to deal with Arsenal's movement.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about Chelsea 2, Arsenal 4. I agree with you. I mean, Liverpool, look, Everton, late equaliser against Leicester. Maybe they'll be in reasonable spirits, but Liverpool can destroy them, aren't they? Let's be honest, on Sunday.
It's probably more... A lot of people still captain Mo Salah the week just gone. Would you consider doing it again now? You've got him. And not taking these hits for Chelsea players and just going Salah.
Well, I wouldn't be taking any hits for any Chelsea players. So let me put it like this: I will captain him over Mason Mount, and I'd captain him over Rudiger, who I already own. If I bought Havertz, then I'd probably captain Havertz over Salah. But it's very this whole just leave it on the Salah. Very much so. I don't see Everton being able to keep Liverpool down to less than 3.
Why do you just?
And it's a home game at the Cop as well, right? I mean, if Liverpool are going to be properly up for it, it might be the last time they get to play a derby at the Cop for a few seasons.
Well, if Everton go down, they won't be playing each other in 2 years. It'll be ages.
Exactly that, right?
Yeah, ages. So, Everton won't come straight back.
I was very shitty on Burnley after our game on Sunday. I thought they would go down, but look,
they were good last night.
They won 2-0. There's a point between the two clubs now, and so where I was saying Burnley are going to go down, I mean, I'll eat some humble pie because it might not be the case. So put it this way: Liverpool will see that game and just want to slap Everton. So I think Salah captaincy, despite the doubles, is really tempting.
Everton,
Chelsea have just shit the bed.
Everton, though, and as we've slated them all season as well, I don't think will mentally capitulate in the way that United did. That said, in terms of quality levels, Everton is another level below. So I mean, Liverpool could be at 70-80% and might still win 4-0, right? But I think Everton will give it everything. You have to factor in Everton's position as well. Like goal difference could be important. So I don't think Liverpool will annihilate them at the weekend. I think something like 3-0 is probably on par, to be honest.
I mean, that's pretty bad. Like losing a game of football 3-0 is pretty comprehensive.
Well, yes, it would be. But I think that's roughly what you expect from the game on Sunday, isn't it? Yeah, I've got nothing much more to add on Liverpool, to be honest. You want to talk about Chelsea-Arsenal? I don't.
Well, you don't. I mean, this was an unexpected result, but even the way the goals were going in, like ping-ponging up till 2-2, felt a bit of a comedy kind of game, end-to-end, mistakes being made defensively.
Despite the score, and we've seen some breathtaking football matches the last few weeks, this never felt like it. Like it didn't have the intensity of atmosphere. I don't know if that was partly like all you could hear was the Arsenal fans, in fairness, during the game. I don't know, obviously, because they can't fill the place at the moment, Chelsea, can they? They're not allowed to sell tickets. And it became obvious during the game, like the whole lower tier on the side of the camera, basically empty and stuff. You can see the corners on the other sides, even the top tier opposite the main stand, empty and stuff. So that's not their fault. Like, that's not helping, is it? Definitely not helping Chelsea. We've conceded 11 goals in the last 3 home games, if you include the Real Madrid game.
How much stall do you put into the makeshift? I call it makeshift, but obviously Reece James played inside as Peliqueta, Christensen and Sarr, and mistakes. They all made mistakes defensively, right? So do you think if Thiago Silva, Rudiger, and Co are all back, then suddenly they're going to be much more solid defensively, and we won't see them conceding 4 goals?
I don't understand why Thiago Silva didn't start, considering he didn't start against Palace in the semi-final. Ted suggested that there might be some concern about him, that he might be carrying an ongoing issue, possibly. But Tuchel probably felt he had to take Christensen off at halftime, which he did. But then Thiago was at fault for the 3rd goal as well, in my opinion. Sarr is very, very average. I've seen him 8-9 times now, and I've seen him play well 3 times, and all 3 of them were against Tottenham. Whenever I've seen him against someone else, it's disastrous. Against us, he looked like a world beater. I think Chalobah in the team would be a good short term for them. That's not to tip him up as an FPL asset, by the way. I think that's 50-50 whether he'd come into the team or not. Christensen's out of contract, and it seems like his head might be. It looks like he's probably going to Barcelona. I think it's the strong rumor. I think he's already on his way out. And for Chelsea, obviously, psychology, it's worth remembering this. Their mind is all now about one game, isn't it? Because even though they lost to Arsenal, they're still comfortably clear. They'll still finish 3rd. There's no way Tottenham and Arsenal both catch them. No way at all. So their mind, even if they got them, say they lost the next 2 or 3 for whatever reason, their fixtures at the end, like finish with Leicester at home, Watford at home. Right, if they have to win them to finish, they'll do it, right? It won't be a problem. So their mind's very much on obviously the Liverpool Cup final. And I think you have to factor that what that also does at the moment is it makes team selection very, very unpredictable. I think the note as well for wildcarders we're thinking ahead and thinking about bench boost 36 is, and we were kind of in unanimous agreement on that podcast yesterday, why he would play anybody who's going to play against Liverpool in the final against Leeds would kind of beg a belief really at the moment. We've got Leeds away on the Wednesday night before they play Liverpool on the Saturday early evening. And Leeds obviously is a game you have to work hard for, right? That's not changed under Jesse Marsh. Still a game you'll have to work hard in. Why would he go? He's not going to play the likes of Thiago Silva and stuff against Leeds if he wants to play against Liverpool, surely. And I realise Thiago Silva's probably not on the top of people's priority list, but I think this applies to a lot of the team. You could not blame Chelsea if they went to Leeds and went, this is literal second 11, Kepa in goal works, everything. And they may well do that. So I think you should bear that in mind. There are other fixtures, Wolves at home. So look, if you've still got Chelsea, particularly defensive assets for that particular game week, as part of a bench boost and they play once against Wolves at home, then fine, they play once against Wolves at home. But if you're looking for that nailed Chelsea doubler twice in 36 as part of a bench boost, I don't think it exists.
No,
that even includes the goalkeeper, honestly. And we discussed that a little bit yesterday as well. For this week coming up, I'd say Ted said yesterday that he didn't think Werner would start twice, which I'd been considering looking at, say, Kane to Werner, and then Fraser to Havertz to get me 2. But I think that's off the table for me. Why am I forcing that in if Werner's potentially only going to start once? And although I think he's been better recently, and he has been, I thought he was great in the Bernabeu, Ted raises the right point, is you still don't really feel like he's going to score. Like all the potential's there. Definitely his sharpness has improved. We still don't fancy him. Like, he's scored in this and it's a bit of a mad deflected goal, which, to be fair, he's a sort of player who's earned that kind of luck with the amount of unluckiness, although sometimes in terms of positioning at fault for himself. So I'm not going there. So I think it's Havertz over Mount for me if you're going in. Why did you think Havertz over Mount as well, Suj? Because you wouldn't captain Mount over Salah, but you would captain Havertz over Salah.
Yeah, just I'm second guessing myself, if I'm honest with you, James.
Because
I was trying to just look at Mason Mount's recent history, and if we go back as far as, let's say, game week 19, game week 20, there's only a few times where he has blanked twice in a row, and he's had a few double-digit hauls in there as well. So Mount has got the consistency, but I do think Havertz's explosiveness could be a big deal. Havertz seems to have a way of just finding the right spot in the box for finishing tap-ins and just being on the end of stuff. So I from a goal-scoring point of view, I think Havertz will really get into the box more, and so I fancy Havertz more. Plus, he's a midfielder, right? And so you get an extra point for a goal and a point for a clean sheet. And Mount will as well, but over Werner there. Yeah, it's a difficult one with Chelsea. I think Lukaku wasn't great either, was he, on Wednesday? So there's no real. I think Havertz is going to pretty much be nailed for the 2 games as well. The question. Go on. I'm going to talk about Arsenal, but go on.
No, I was just going to say, a friend of the show, Josh Paxman, who's also a Chelsea fan, was obviously on the surgery previously. He tweeted out some stats on Havertz versus Mount versus Werner. I'd just like to share some of that for you. This is just on game week 28 to 32. Penalty area touches, Havertz 39 versus Mount 24. Mount 18, Werner 24. Shots is Havertz 15 versus 12 and 12. Shots in the box is Havertz 14, Werner 11, Mount 6. Big chances, 7 for Havertz, 5 for Werner, 2 for Mount. Chances created, 7 for Havertz, 7 Mount, 3 Werner. Non-penalty expected goal involvement, Havertz 4.8, Mount 3, Werner 2.2. It should be said Havertz has got about basically an extra game in there over Werner, 90 minutes or so, but Havertz and Mount's minutes is very similar. So on the statistics over that period, and obviously bear in mind Havertz didn't start against Arsenal on Wednesday, Havertz does come out on top.
Yeah, agreed.
And he's definitely clearly, I think over that period as well, it's become clear that Havertz is definitely first choice striker. Like it became clear to me that Chelsea would not have picked that lineup on Wednesday had they been playing Tottenham, but that's just my own personal annoyance and pissed off that Chelsea's only involvement in the world is just to stick it on Tottenham. Chelsea and Arsenal, like they've definitely got something going on. Honestly, like
Chelsea and Arsenal.
Yeah, like they've both got each other's sister-in-law or something, mate. Like honestly, they just both hate Tottenham.
Well, they're not the only ones, firstly, that hate Tottenham. You're quite a dislikable club.
You're massive. It's
so
different.
You're so just to be clear, you believe that there is a conspiracy theory between Chelsea and Arsenal to stick it up Tottenham. Let's get it on record.
No, I don't. No, I don't at all. I just know genuinely, and to be fair, Ted didn't argue it yesterday, is that they would not have picked that starting line up against Arsenal if they'd have been playing Tottenham. Literally no way would they have done that.
Yeah, it begs the question why. Arsenal, on the other hand, so I went in on Martinelli.
You could put it down to Arsenal being irrelevant or something if you want.
Maybe they thought that no party and certain players missing in Arsenal, there was the opportunity to maybe rotate and still beat them, because it wasn't a weak Arsenal team, but it wasn't full strength either. I went in on Martinelli 3 weeks ago or so. They have a plethora of talent in Odegaard, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, even now in Ketchup, between 5.3 and say 5.8 million for the bench boost in 36. I feel like with Martinelli getting dropped, it's easy when Odegaard's got an assist, Smith Rowe's got a goal, and Ketchup's got 2. You're like, all these other guys are returning. The one that I own hasn't, even though he did have a big chance that he missed towards the end when Saka set him up. So there's every chance Martinelli plays this week, right? I don't feel like he's dropped. I just feel like they're rotating the system a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
Can you rank these Arsenal players as well in terms of bench boost? I mean, Saka hands up.
Saka will play every game. You can be certain.
Head and shoulders above him, but he is 6.8 million. So you have to make that decision whether you want to spend that extra money. But for bench boost in the mid fives, quite these guys offer great value. But
the only one to be confident, like if you're looking ahead towards 36, like if you're wildcarding now and stuff. And I'll be honest, I'm not seeing a lot of Arsenal in wildcard drafts, and my honest advice would be potentially reconsider that. Actually, they were excellent Wednesday, by the way. We'll come back onto that. I think in terms of those lower price midfield ones, if you're desperate to have the guy that's going to play twice, go for Odegaard. Odegaard won't get dropped either. I think it was captain the other night.
Yeah, he wore the armband. I was going to say, James. So it says a lot about.
And he's certainly in form. Smith Rowe his goal returns, considering his minutes this year, is great. I think
incredible.
Everybody knows.
Now.
Everybody knows his explosiveness in Martinelli as well. They played it a little bit differently the other night, where they could kind of flip-flop between a back 4 and a back 3. It was more primarily, I thought, a back 4 with Ben White playing right back. But Saka started from really deep positions. I think part of that was also to kind of draw Alonso onto him. And I know a lot of people be considering Alonso at the moment, and that's fine. I'm not particularly going to put you off. But what I can tell you is he's defensively absolutely wank. And that means that Tuchel can take him out of the team at any point. Saka was destroying him when he went at him. And you felt like when Saka was going at him, you felt he's getting destroyed out, and you feel it every time. It was, to be honest, it was surprising that Saka hadn't returned prior to the penalty at the end, which is bizarre defending from Azpilicueta. Admittedly, Saka's pulling him a bit as well, but your experience, get off him. Get off him. If you pull your body weight back, get off him. VAR, you remember as well, VAR will look at it. So if they give a penalty for him pulling Saka back and Saka's pulling in, well, they won't give the penalty, will they? They'll call it out. But because Azpilicueta's kind of gone with him and stuff, it's weird. Anyway, Arsenal were exceptional. They were really good. What impressed me most about them was the pressing off the ball. They're really, really structured and clearly coached when they press without the ball. And I thought they did it with unity and did it really well throughout the game. I know there was a lot of people up in arms with El Neni being in the team. But actually, I reflected, when I saw the team, the first thing I thought of was probably Arsenal's best performance from last season was when they won at Old Trafford. And El Neni played in midfield in that game as well. And he's a good ball presser. So I think he's brought that into the team. It doesn't mean he's going to stay in the team for Lokonga, for example, because I think going into the game Saturday, they're obviously going to have more of the ball than they would expect to have at Stamford Bridge, for example. But I think El Neni's good for them in terms of the press, actually. Smith Rowe could get dropped for Martinelli. Otherwise, I think it'd probably be the same team that beat Chelsea tomorrow. And they're obviously right up Tottenham's arse now in terms of the race for fourth. It does look like the game in the double game week is probably going to be pivotal no matter what happens in the next couple of weeks.
Book that in for a draw right now.
If we win our other games, I'll take that.
Everton won late equaliser, Rondon assist. Leicester won. Starting with Leicester, because there's more.
Rondon assist, you're trying to make me choke.
I'm trying to just like things you never thought would happen in football kind of thing. But let's start with Leicester, because looking at their lineup, I almost felt confident that this might be their. I mean, okay, look, injuries aside, because Vardy
strongest team
play
is what you're
strongest
say.
Team.
Yeah.
Schmeichel, I think Evans and Fofana in the middle, Pereira on one side, Castagne on the other, Tielemans and Mendy in the middle, Dewsbury Hall in front of them with Maddison one side, Barnes the other, and Iheanacho up top. Do you feel with available personnel that that's their best team?
Subject to one or two potential decisions, basically. Yes. I mean, look, they've got players out like Ndidi, it's worth remembering. But
and Ndidi would come in ahead of Mendy, and you'd say that Vardy would play ahead of Iheanacho, but they're not available. So,
but the bulk of the players are obviously back fit, and they've obviously put themselves in a position where they can pick two teams now, which I think reflects on how unlucky they've been with injuries, not just this season, but the last couple of years, actually. And I think we have to question, though, are we now looking at first choice midweek, second choice weekend? Is that possible now?
Do we have any historical evidence on what Brendan Rodgers did when he was at Liverpool, for example, when they were juggling European football? Well, not really.
I don't know if he got Liverpool this far in Europe from memory, to be honest with you. So there's nothing. I mean, he would have had quite a small quality squad when he was at Liverpool as well, in fairness.
There will be rotation. Whether or not it's one team at the weekend, one team midweek, or half and half, and rotating players out, sure. I think the place where they've struggled most is defensively. And that's where I think we'll see the most consistency, because Evans and Fofana have been out for a while, but they haven't played a lot of football. So maybe they've got it in their legs to play more games this season. And you run less at the back.
I don't think, like, for example, I don't think Evans and Fofana, in my opinion, my best guess would be don't play against Villa tomorrow, because they're very important. Whereas some of the attacking players, like, for example, Maddison didn't start at Newcastle, started at Everton. Would I be surprised if Maddison started again against Villa? No. So I think you might get more of a mix-up this weekend, because obviously, look, it's 5 days till they go and play Roma. So it's probably more about recovery. I don't think he'll risk Fofana or Evans tomorrow. Just play Siunshu and Amati, I would imagine.
Yeah, so, Siunshu I don't mind as a suggestion, but the drop-off to
Amati...
No, as in, like, if Siunshu comes in for Evans or Fofana, great. The drop-off isn't so big. Amati coming in, you're weakening your team significantly. And I think that's why I think Siunshu will come in, but one of the two will play.
I think both, because you could look at it and say Siunshu might be not a million miles off Evans in terms of quality, but what does Evans do? He's a leader, isn't he? So I think they've really missed out without him, and I think they've always missed him when he's not been available the last couple of years, and they've always struggled to replace him. And Fofana, we've known, is a huge talent, and Leicester are obviously going to be careful with him now that he's recovered from injury. It's why, for those who are wildcarding now, I mean, I've not seen many wildcard teams this week without Kasper Schmeichel. I just take that problem away from you and go, there's Everton at home, Norwich at home. They're not keeping many clean sheets. Schmeichel at the moment, he's played every league game. There's no reason to think that he wouldn't play those two games in double game week 36 or even in 37, for example. The one I would question is just a note on this. For those who are looking to run through 36 and 37, you're obviously seeing more Villa and more Everton and Leicester in teams. So if you're not wildcarding in 38 like Suj might be, you may find yourself with a huge problem for game week 38. And at the end of the day, it's still a big game week. Arsenal have got Everton at home, City got Villa at home, Liverpool got Wolves at home, Tottenham got Norwich away, right? Some really good fixtures final day. Villa who obviously have the double, and also obviously have Norwich at home in 35. So a brilliant run. They finish away at Manchester City. Watford finish at Chelsea. Why I say that's relevant is because I've seen a lot of Schmeichel and Foster combinations at the moment, which I think is probably the right play on Wildcard. It's probably what I'm going to do, but I think it's relevant for what I'm about to say. And obviously Everton go to Arsenal. So if you're going with 4 or 5 from them on Wildcard, which when you consider as well, you've got budget options like Jacob Ramsey, Anthony Gordon, like it's reasonable, then you're potentially looking at a problem on the final day. If you're also going into Leicester quite a bit, well, if they get to the Conference League final, that's 3 days after they play Southampton on the final day, then you know it's definitely the second team, even to the point that maybe even Kasper Schmeichel might not play that final game. And I think you should be conscious of that. If you're running through both game weeks with Everton, Villa, Leicester, 38 is potentially a big problem. It's one of the reasons as well I really wanted to free hit in 37. It's I could go with them guys and no, I haven't got to deal with that in 38, because I think if you're free hitting if you were free hitting in 38, you certainly wouldn't have any Villa or Everton. I don't think you'd have Leicester against Southampton anyway. There's too many other good options from other fixtures. So just be really, really cautious of that, because you can obviously look at the doubles and get blinded by the final day. If Leicester beat Roma, then that's shit for their final day. And if you've got Schmeichel Foster, consider that. So I'm going to look at that in terms of, is it worth me paying the extra for a Ramsdale to go with Schmeichel, for example? Because you just don't want to look at Foster in your team in game 38 away to Chelsea, do you? Let's be honest.
No. So, you're right.
But I do generally think.
But also you get transfers as well.
Yeah, but it's probably the right play. Yeah, of course. Look, you could use Schmeichel to Ramsdale, but let's be honest. Do you want to make a goalkeeper change of 38? You don't, do you? You especially don't want to take a hit for it, because same thing. Chelsea might beat Watford 4-0 and Foster might save a penalty. There's no point taking a hit to move it on. You just play him if Schmeichel wasn't going to play, right?
If only you had a wild card. Should we talk about Newcastle 1, Palace 0?
No, let's talk about Everton a little bit. Calvert-Lewin out again. The never-ending saga of his season. He's obviously been really unlucky, but also when he got himself fit, I mean, it's questionable if he had even got himself fit or it was just necessity for Everton to stick him in. I prefer Richarlison wide than through the middle, and I've said this to you loads of times. But I also think if you can manage it, I think he's a really good option. Not for the next couple necessarily, because it's Liverpool away, Chelsea at home. But I think he's really good for 36, 37. Leicester away, Watford away in 36. Brentford and Crystal Palace at home in 37. I think he's a really, really good option. He may well be on my wild card next week, and I go, look, I'll bench you against Chelsea, and I've got you ready for afterwards. So I'd strongly consider him. Anthony Gordon, he's obviously great value. You've got Gordon, Dewsbury Hall, and Jacob Ramsey, all got doubles in 36. We discussed that earlier in the week in terms of could that be your bench boost, and you just go Salah, Son, and spread the money, heavy in defence, and go with like Kane and Werner up front and someone else, for example. Kane, Werner, and Richarlison as an example. Yerry Mina would be the only one defensively that I'd want to consider. It's too much. It's like 4.9. Reality is, why am I playing that for an Everton defender when I can't have, fine, he isn't going to get the attacking returns, but like Ben White at 4.6 or Ben Davis at 4.4, not going for Yerry Mina. But I think Gordon, Richarlison, really interesting for those wildcarding. I think they're absolutely fine. Big result from, right? Because when you're down there, every point is massive.
Yeah, I think that saving the 1 point with the draw is huge.
Rondon's assist is obviously assist of the season. His miscontrol rather summing up his Everton career, but actually it meant that I think it was Sinchu went into block Richarlison. I might have that wrong. He hesitated, and then Richarlison obviously got in for the shot. The next 2 weeks are scary for Everton because we've got Liverpool and Chelsea. That's obviously scary in itself. But at the same time, Burnley got Wolves at home and Watford away.
I remember we were in a similar situation post, when football reopened after the lockdown. And obviously we were right bang in the relegation zone, and we're coming back into it. And we had a couple of difficult games before we had a run that was where we really needed to pick up our points. And you come into it and you're like, shit, I think we played you very straight after the
That's right, yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, we're in there. We need to start picking up points, 7, 8 games to go. But the first couple were difficult. And you're like, you've got to try and get them out of your mind as a hit to nothing, because the games that follow are the ones where you're going to pick up the points.
But they're
it's
not.
very hard to do.
They're not a hit to nothing because goal difference is close enough.
That's true. Yeah, and in that sense, you never want to get slapped. But it is hard psychologically to look ahead and be like, these are not the games when it's that close, and it's that close to the end of the season. And even if people say these are not the games where you expected to pick up points, you still feel the need to want to. So yeah, gonna be tricky for sure.
I wouldn't be overly shocked though if you said to me now, jump into the future and Everton have beat Chelsea in 35. I wouldn't be overly shocked, just because Everton, are going to be so up for it, whereas the Chelsea give a toss. No, the Chelsea in the league, I know they lost the other night. They've got nothing to play for, really. And I think that's worth bearing that in mind into this week as well, in terms of the unpredictability of what Tuchel might do with some of his lineups. I don't obviously think Everton will beat Chelsea in 35, but it wouldn't shock me if they go there. The atmosphere that Chelsea will face at Goodison will be very different to the atmosphere they face at Old Trafford. The Everton crowd will be right up for it for that particular game. They'll be desperate.
Let's talk quickly about Newcastle 1, Palace 0. We still got 3 games to get through, mate, and no time to do it. Gomeres pops up with an assist again. A straightforward win for Newcastle, really. They dominated the first half, especially.
Yeah, I've not seen a lot of this, so I covered this off really quickly for you. Yeah, lovely assist from Gomeres. I'm not convinced that he meant the backspin in the way he did, but actually he's such a gorgeous player that it wouldn't surprise me if he did. What a finish from Almiron, by the way. They've obviously got Norwich away this weekend. I have a suspicion they might get beat, actually.
I'm playing Chris Wood, regardless, though.
No. You've got to. I mean, in my case, Fabian Schär is probably going to be first sub for me. So I feel like that's good cover going into the game week. If, say, Rudiger misses the whole week, for example. It's another reason to think, do I want to take a -4? I've got a player on the bench sitting there who's got Norwich away. Like, there's every chance for a clean sheet, isn't there? I think for most, it will probably be play your Newcastle assets. That won't be for everyone. Like in my case, I'm probably having Schär first sub. But then afterwards, it's binnable with what they've got left. Liverpool 35, City 36, Arsenal 37. They go to Burnley 38. The rest is binnable. How many have you got?
How many? 3. Newcastle?
Yeah.
None. I've only got Chris Wood.
There definitely will be people with 3. And I think the majority of those who've got 3 have probably got the wild card left, or either on it now or going to be on it next week and can deal with it. You certainly would not want to be bench boosting in 36 with like the Bravka or Schär or Chris Wood sitting, or even Bruno Gomeres. I think even sitting on your bench, Gomeres. I think after this weekend, he's an easy move to Dewsbury Hall, Gordon, Jacob Ramsey, whichever you fancy from that. It's an easy sideways move. But he's been brilliant. On Palace, I think the headline from this is Mateta coming out the team. He got taken off early in the cup semi-final against Chelsea and then moved Wilf Zaha through the middle. We discussed this on Monday. I said on that pod as well that I thought the idea that he was nailed was off the table. And I mentioned about if those wild carding now and looking, he's my enabler for 36, which is reasonable because they've got Watford at home as a single, but it's easily a 1 point. Very easily could be a 1 point. I still think he's a decent asset, but if you're relying on him and need him, I wouldn't be convinced that you're gonna get, like, for example, obviously I've looked at him as an option because they've got Leeds at home Monday night. So Weghorst to Mateta would be my facilitator to get Havertz, but far prefer going to Nketiah at this moment in the time. And if that bites me because Nketiah blanks and Mateta goes off and Arsenal blank, then so be it. But yeah, I think for 1 week, I think Nketiah's the better call. So I wouldn't even be surprised if Edouard starts again. Remember, we had that with Edouard before, wasn't it? It was like, he must come back in this week. He must come back in this week. It went on for like 4 or 5 games, didn't it? So maybe Vieira's decided he's got what he's got out of Mateta and might decide to look elsewhere. Just be really cautious of that. I do think somewhere along the next few weeks, Wilf Zaha will have a big game, a big moment somewhere and a big return in him. And he'll probably be part of my free hit in 37, I think.
Yeah, he's going to be in my free hit in 37 alongside Conor Gallagher provisionally at the moment. So let's hope it's then, not before. City 3, Brighton 0. I felt really from Pep post-game that City know that they can't afford to be dropping points anymore with the form that Liverpool are in. And I think when City know they've got to win, more often than not, they can get the job done. And in the end, they did here. I still think that going into if the provisional double in 36, I might only have defensive Cancelo and Laporte. I can't get to any of the attackers, and that will be that. As good as City are, it might just be Cancelo and Laporte for me if I can make it happen.
Look, I'm not going to overly think about it till the weekend's gone. But my current intention in terms of wildcard next week is to go treble Liverpool defensive, Van Dijk on top of the two fullbacks, and Cancelo and Laporte. Go right back to the start of the 18-19 seasons to set up that year and go with that for the finish, because I'm convinced Liverpool and City will have clean sheets for the remainder of this season. And those boys are all capable of getting attacking returns, even Laporte, Van Dijk. What's really interesting as well is City have potentially walked into a bit of an injury problem here. So unconfirmed, but it is speculation that Cole Walker may miss the rest of the season. And it's worth remembering Cancelo is suspended for the first leg of the semi-final against Real Madrid next week. So if you worried about Cancelo this weekend, I'd be very, very surprised if he didn't play against Watford. Nathan Ake hobbled off. John Stones hobbled off. We've got no information on them yet. But suddenly you're looking at it and going, well, if those two are injured for a while, obviously Diaz is back now, then you're going, it's Cancelo, Diaz, Laporte, Zinchenko every game. Mm-hmm. I mean, what they do at Madrid on Tuesday, if you without Cancelo for that as well, he might even go over back three. I could see him maybe even from the Madrid game going back three and going play Bernardo Silva really deep, which he likes to do sometimes in big games anyway. And play a little bit like what Bayern do, play with two wingers like Mahrez and Foden who hold and higher really, and then he'll have an extra body in midfield. But then you can get at the flanks of City. Then be interesting. This injury news is really important for them, really, really important. But I mean that back four, as mentioned, is still decent. Like Cancelo, Diaz, Laporte, and Zinchenko. If that's what they have to go with for the rest of the season, it's still all right, but potentially a problem for them on Tuesday. But then it might even mean there's more security in those City guys defensively. If Stones and Ake's done quite well recently. I've always been quite critical of him, but he has done well recently. If those guys are out, there's security to even look at someone like Zinchenko suddenly.
Brighton off the table now.
Yeah, they are. Bissouma was a big miss for them on Wednesday. I didn't realise that he'd obviously got his 10th booking against Tottenham. So was obviously suspended. It's worth noting to be suspended again the weekend. I was surprised that they didn't drop arguably Mwepu actually into a real deeper position. They have done this in a few games recently where they played McAllister in a really, really deep role. He's a lovely footballer on the ball, good on the eye and stuff, but you can get swamped there against Man City. And the first goal was a perfect example with obviously De Bruyne goes on the long run and goes through him and stuff. But credit to Brighton. I think they had City a little bit nervous for a while, not in terms of threatening City's goal, but in terms of could City break them down. And they obviously had self-belief after the results at Arsenal and Tottenham. I wouldn't be surprised, Brighton, if they finish the season really strongly. I think they'll stay with a back three for the rest of the season. But yeah, I think you're right, Suj. I think from an FPL perspective, that's gone now, I think.
And last but not least, Burnley 2, Southampton 0. Glad that Burnley won, just to keep this relegation battle.
Evertonians going to love you, aren't they?
Well, we need a bit of drama in the old league.
The neutral wants it to be close. Let's be honest.
Josh Brown,
I do worry massively for Everton. I really do.
I know Josh Brown, who obviously popped up with 2 assists, and he's cheap as chips. So a few people might kind of be looking at Josh Brown here. All I would say is look at his FPL returns before yesterday, and he did play the majority of games for the last 15 weeks. There's nothing.
There's a catch though. But there's a couple of catches. One is, do I think Josh Brownhill's a better FPL asset than Ramsey, Dewsbury Hall, or who's the other one I missed? Andy Gordon right now? No, I don't. Worth saying as well, Fabian Delph's 4.2 and he's playing every game for Everton at the moment. So you'd even struggle to fit Brownhill over that. Plus they've got a single in 36 where you might want to use it. But look, if you were heading towards a bench boost 37, then arguably, but even still, you've got those other players mentioned have got doubles as well, so it doesn't make sense. It looks like it's going to be on a set pieces now, though, because obviously Westwood picked up the horrendous injury against yourself. So might be something to consider for the start of next season if he's at a similar price. There's no real reason for him to get hiked up to 5 million, I don't think. So it might be we're starting next season and talking about Josh Brownhill again, possibly. You escaped Suj because Weghorst should have scored, mate, when he hit the post. It could have been a nice little haul for him, unbelievably. But I was going to, if I don't sell him, I'm going to bench him this week. I'm not fussed. I actually think Wolves might go there and win because they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this. And Bruno Lage was so vexed with the way they played at Newcastle. Burnley assets generally, I mean, what are we looking at? Connor Roberts is back in the team. Might be interesting.
With the answers, we're not.
No, I think shout out for Collins, who scored as well. Who's getting better game on game. I still think they miss Ben Mee, so it doesn't give me over the big confidence in them defensively. Weghorst can go, I think now. But what is it for Sidders? I would consider that. And Ketcher, if you're listening, like if you generally believe, look, Mateta starts Monday and you want to go down that route, fine, go for it. I think
Pookie, he's got a double in 36. Dennis got double in 36. Dennis is still there loitering. He's not bad. And if you can find money, you mentioned Richarlison at 7.5. It's not a huge jump.
There are options. Just remember, the reality here is if you move from someone at Weghorst's price to lower, you probably are moving from one ship forward to another. The one you won't be moving to is Armando Broja.
I was going to ask you, James, selling which is going to give you more joy, selling Weghorst or selling Broja?
Well, selling Broja to Nketiah to fund Havertz doesn't work, so it's going to be Weghorst. I'm really surprised because I bought Broja after his performance at Tottenham, which was, I think that was the first Premier League set of fixtures after the January break. Hey, it was exceptional, mate. Honestly, I came back to you afterwards. I was like, he's going to be a top level forward. And I still think he probably will be, actually.
He's a top level forward. He's just not a top level FPL asset.
It's definitely not happening at the moment.
I
can't believe he's gone through that period since and not scored.
I'm sure it was Tom Campbell this morning, the mayor, that tweeted 17 points in 13 game weeks from Broja.
Yeah, that's mad.
And he's played most of those games as well.
Yeah. I feel sorry for Che Adams owners as well, because honestly, if I'd have free hitted this week, I would have had Che Adams. I'd have gone with him. So really surprised. But then I do think Adams probably, if they stick with the same system, because they've obviously changed to a back three, if they stick with that, then I think Adams comes in for Broja for the game at Brighton on Sunday. But I don't suppose many of you want to start Broja now anyway. So I mean, I've got him bust third on the bench no matter what I do, and that's almost definitely where he'll stay. Hassan Hootel has a bit of an obsession with, he wants to play 2 10s, these kind of wide 10s / inside wide players, if you will, which at the moment is Armstrong, Elyounoussi. And I don't dislike either player. Elyounoussi, in that, going back to that fixture at Tottenham, like he was so good that night, such a threat. But I think they've tailed off a little. And if he wants to go that way with a back three, I think he'd be better off going with one of them in there, or going with a midfield three and dropping Armstrong deeper and having the two up front would be better for them. Leanne Cowell is what's facilitated the change to the back three. It's the same old with them, and it applies to Brighton as well. I would not be surprised if Southampton go to Brighton and win 3-4-0 on Sunday. That sort of result would just sum up those two clubs, because on any given day they'll give anyone trouble, but on any given day they'll be shite as well. So that's a 1-1 prediction, isn't it?
What is it that our friend Gattuso says? Sometimes they may be good,
sometimes maybe shit.
Maybe shit. Indeed. There we go. It's a wrap up of the games for you listeners. I don't think we've been particularly helpful in terms of direction of transfers, but there's a lot of injury news and things.
By Chelsea, no one's really thinking about my Chelsea, mate.
And figure out what money you do have. Just for the listeners, James, what's the plan in terms of deadline streams and bits and pieces over the next 24 hours and the Patreon bits and pieces as well.
Our differential show will
out.
be out for intermediate and advanced to Patreon probably about 4 or 5 o'clock today. The team news stream for advanced will be at 9 o'clock this evening. Deadline stream for everybody will be at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then I'm going to Brentford. If anybody has information on a spare ticket and the Spurs away end, you know where my DMs are. I will buy.
Good. Do you want to answer a few Twitter questions, James?
Yeah, let's do that. Can I just say one quick thing before you do? Wildcards. A lot of people obviously on wildcards at the moment. There are 5 game weeks to go. If you're doing it, make it a team that you bloody like, not what someone else likes.
Yeah.
Go for a team that you want, that you like, and you're happy with.
I will use that advice gladly in Gameweek 38, mate. I can't wait to get 100 points in Gameweek 38.
You are not going to wildcard in Gameweek. I know you're going to pull it next week, mate.
Nah, I don't think it is. I just need to map out financially, and also the wildcard team that I have is so tight on money. Like literally, there's 0.000 in the bank. So yeah.
You are going to wildcard next Friday night, I think.
Nah, that would be stupid.
I will definitely be wildcarding tomorrow after dinner.
11:31.
Nah, I'll do it when I get home from Spurs when I'm pissed off because I've got beat at Brentford.
Timo on the drugs.
Yeah.
I've been listening to you guys all season and we really appreciate it. Regular question asker says, I'm still not good at FPL. What's the point?
Neither are we.
Well, I've thought about this and it's not our fault. It's the players. It's the football players. They fucking let us down every week. It's not our fault that they, like Weghorst got a double game week, does sod all, but he scored 1 goal. It's not enough. Chris Wood got a double game week. It's their fault. It's the players' fault. It's not our fault. So
no, it is your fault. It's all our fault, right? For going for these shit forwards.
Nah, I've decided that that I'm going to blame the footballers from now on. It's not my FPL decisions. And if you do the same, it's fine. Then you can just get angry at them rather than at yourself.
By the way, if you're wildcarding without a bench boost, I'd strongly be considering like Gelhardt and Greenwood. Two proper budgets and just spend your money somewhere else. I'd honestly strongly think about it. I probably wouldn't go both. I'd definitely go one if I was wildcarding without the bench boost.
FPL Kaka. Which Only Fools and Horses character do you both feel like you resemble the most? I always like to buy it for £1 and sell it for £2.
Yeah,
so
we're both fucking Del Boy, aren't we? Basically,
Del Boy.
We're just very different.
You've got Boise. Boise's a little bit more professional in his business dealings, isn't he?
Actually,
Boise.
do you know what?
I reckon I'll go Boise so that you can have Del. But I'm in my trading style. I'm a bit more like Del. But maybe in my life, I'm a bit more like Boise.
You'd met a good Marlene, mate.
Marlene. She's never even in the show, is she? It's always talked about, but I don't really
see it. That's like us, isn't it? I don't let you get a word in.
Nah, there we go. Marlene. Yeah, exactly that. Quite a few questions here on double City attack or double City defense. I'm going double City defense only because I don't want the headache of do they or don't they play.
I think for the rest of this season, if people want to punt the likes of Sterling or De Bruyne as their premium, I think it's okay. You know the risk, right? I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. I think they're decent options. I mean, Mahrez and Foden, I feel a little less so because and this applies to KDB as well, but KDB is so integral to what City do. I definitely think Mahrez and Foden will be playing the Champions League games, but then there's only 2 left, right? And there's 5 or 6 league games, 6 league games left for City. So should it really impact? I think Foden probably plays the majority. Mahrez is the sort of one I'd be quite nervous about Mahrez, I think, for this week. But I messaged Johnny Pringle yesterday, actually, and I didn't lace it with anything, but I said to him, what do you think the front 3 will be this weekend? And he didn't tell me what he thought it would be, but he told me what he wanted it to be, which was Mahrez, Foden and Sterling. I think Sterling is really interesting for the rest of this season. I'm not going to go there personally, but I think he's really interesting. I think it might open up that the defensive guys, like suddenly Ruben Diaz with like no ownership, I wouldn't even know what price he was, but he can't be overly expensive at the moment. He'd certainly be affordable, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I don't mind that
Might
particularly.
even be a better. Laporte's like 5'9", I want to say. I don't know if
Laporte
Diaz
is
has dropped by that.
5.9. Diaz is 6.1. So I think of that, you'd probably still just go with Laporte, wouldn't you?
Probably, yes.
2 more questions, James. Barry Allen. How have I ended up with a front three of Weghorst, Breuer, and Dennis? Well, it's close to what my front three was last week, although now I've got Wood, Breuer, and Dennis. So the answer, there's no question yet, but I'd say if you end up with the same team as me, quit the game.
Yep.
Going Kaneless on Wildcard 34 and 35, who are the 3 best forwards for bench boost in game week 36? I mean, what he doesn't indicate there is budget,
Value.
right?
Well,
Because
yeah.
are you going to go heavy? So for me, I'm going to end up with Dennis, Pookie, and AN other. If I go from Son to Havertz, which is potentially the plan this week, it gives me enough money to get to Richarlison, who James just mentioned. And then I'd end up with Richarlison, Dennis, and Pookie. And I don't mind that for the double at all. And that's not, that's not wild carding, but that's what I'd end up with. So, but there's obviously lots of other good options as well. How much money do you want to spend?
Just a really interesting thing actually as well, because I've been looking at this more this week in terms of fitting about Werner's price bracket and stuff. There isn't anything in the game, and this is one of the reasons why I want to go really heavy defense when I wildcard next week. There isn't anything in the game between sort of 8-10 million, if we exclude Trent here, in terms of midfielders and forwards that's interesting. It's nothing. And you can go higher, right? So up from like Havertz and Jota, that Jota, obviously. Jota's what, 8.3, I want to say. Up from Jota all the way up to sort of like Sonny, it's like 3 million or so nearly. There's nothing there of interest. Similarly with the forwards below, and Ronaldo, if you got Ronaldo this week, if you keep him, you play him, obviously. From Ronaldo down to Werner, there's nothing. It's like a hole of there might as well be nothing there, which if you're leaving a bit of money in the bank and you're around these kind of 7 million forward marks, it's like there's nothing to go up to unless you're going right up to Kane and stuff. The going with only one premium on Wildcard, I think, opens up the idea to get off of these Dennis's, Breuers, stuff like that, where I would like to, if I go without Kane, and I won't promise you that I will, but I'll know this time next week. If I go without, I'd like to go with a front three that is something like Watkins, Richarlison, Iheanacho. And their ownership between the three of them would be like nothing. And just punt it. For me, at that point, it will be, I'd probably play Watkins in 35, bench the other two, genuinely. I'd probably bench him, ready to go for 36. And then I've got them 38. Now, admittedly, Watkins and Richarlison, that's the exact problem I spoke about, Villa, Everton, Leicester, right? But then at that point, I'm happier to take the -4 for the forward rather than it would be the goalkeeper going into the final day. And it might be that if I decided to go with a City premium, maybe I'd drop that down to get Kane in or something. Not that you particularly want to, but there's ways to get off it. Or I just rely on Arsenal shooting themselves in the foot, pick Richarlison that day if Leicester got the Conference League final. Pookie's also run the real consideration. But I don't want any of these guys below Pookie's level. Breuer, Dennis's, Matetas and stuff. I don't want any of that personally. So I'm looking at going a little bit higher with the forwards. And I think to go with the combinations of them, like I said, the ownership across them is going to be next to nothing. And I'd rather shoot for the stars at this stage. I don't care if I finish 100k or 200k. I don't really care if I finish 50k or 100k, but I might as well go for it and try and enjoy it at the end. I'd rather try and do some different things if I can.
Nice. The last question of the show is, what's the best biscuit to dip in tea? It's coming from FPL Elephant.
I am going to say Hobnob.
Hobnob is decent. I don't mind Hobnob as a shout, James. We have all sorts of things you dip in tea controversies with our patrons. Well, I do particularly.
Yeah, Suj dips his jam toast into tea.
Yeah, do you know what? We've opened this can of worms with the patrons. I'm not comfortable opening this can of worms with the entire rest of our listeners.
Well, I've just done it.
But the biscuits with chocolate chips in when you dip in tea. The
I
chocolate
mean, like
gets
a
little bit-
Maryland.
yeah, something like that. The chocolate gets a little bit, gooey. That's a good one. That's a good one. So chocolate chip biscuits, cookies, whatever else, definitely worth dipping in tea.
I mean, Maryland's going in one mouthful, so I've not got time to look at the.
Do you know what's amazing is I don't know if your wife buys them for your son. The
She
mini
don't buy
bags.
me shit, mate.
No, for your son, mate. The mini bags.
She doesn't
the
buy anything
snack
for him
bags.
either.
Oh, okay. Because they're little bite size. So then it's a competition. How many mini Marylands can you get in your mouth in one go? I think I could do the whole packet.
I'm sure little Harry would have a good go at that.
Yeah, tell me about. Well, I wasn't talking about him. I'm talking about you, mate. I nick the ones that are there for my kids all day long, but they're too small.
We also learned about that on Patreon on Tuesday's Q&A as well, about you teething from your children.
If you want to support the show and keep our children fed with Maryland cookies, then you can head over to patreon.com/PlanetFPL. Other than that, you know where to find us on all the major platforms. And I'm going to just say, I hope you enjoyed this episode because we're into deadline and transfer time. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck this week. Play it your way. Cue music, please, man child.